Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for this epic discussion, which is going to feature Shannon Q and G-Man, and we are absolutely thrilled for this one. They go way back, folks, way back. So their first talk it was a while ago. It was like back when the internet first crowned G-Man as king of the internet, and which also coincidentally was around the same time that Canada got internet. So that was a big day for Shannon. Very
same
exciting.
day.
Big day. We are stoked. So it's we love them both. They're like family, and my love language is teasing, and that's you can just tell how much I love these guys because I want to tease them. But they're linked in the description. So if you enjoy this discussion and you're like, I like that, I want to hear more, you can click on those links right below and hear plenty more where that came from. So we are seriously honored. We really appreciate both of you guys coming, Shannon Q and G-Man. And with that, I don't want to take any more time. I want to say a couple of things. If you have questions, you can fire them into the live chat, and then I will pull those out and read those off at the end. And then, if this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we have a lot more debates coming up, and you can hit that little bell for reminders, as we have a lot of both religion, politics, maybe a little science, all sorts of stuff. Very excited for it. So with that, Shannon has graciously offered to get the ball rolling in this conversation. So, Shannon, so glad to have you here. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Okay, I'm really excited about this conversation. Discussing morality is one of my favorite things to do. And one of the reasons for that is I feel as though I'm still kind of in the exploratory stage of me finding a firm footing on my position regarding morality. So having these discussions helps me kind of measure and assess what different perspectives are and figure out what weight certain things should have. So I was interested in having this discussion with G-Man. I was glad that he asked for the discussion because looking at whether or not humans are more moral than God puts us in a position where we have to establish a moral standard in order to even make that sort of measurement. And that's a good exercise to go through, I think, when you're doing these sort of things, is figuring out exactly what a moral standard is. So in order, you need to be able to quantify it in order to make a careful assessment. So I'm looking forward to G-Man kind of laying out what God's morality is and seeing, I guess, if he lives up to his own standards or if humans exceed his standards, and if so, why? Like what metrics we use to figure these sorts of things out. Is that fair, G-Man? Did I articulate that well enough?
Yeah, that's fine. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right.
So what I'm really interested in, if you're willing to kind of take the talking stick, would be, what is God's standard of morality? So if you had to define God's morality, if you had to say, God's morality is this, and define it so that we have the metric, that we have the bar by which we're judging the conversation topic on, how would you define it?
Okay. From a Christian perspective,
yeah,
I would say that the standard is us. I'm sorry, not us. I'm sorry. The standard is God himself. It's his very nature. He is the standard. God is the epitome of everything that we understand about love. God is the epitome of everything that we consider to be honest. God is the epitome of everything that we would consider to be good or wholesome or whatever. You know what I mean? All the values that we consider good, at least universally anyway. So he's actually the standard. And the only way a person can prove that God is being immoral if you show how he goes against his own nature. For example, God tells the children of Israel to worship him exclusively. God tells the children of Israel to be loyal to their spouse and to be loyal and to be loyal in all of their affairs. If you can show where God is not actually doing that, then you can show where he's being immoral. So he's actually the standard. He's the standard bearer. If you can show where God has lied, if you can show where he has been contradictory in his behavior, then you have an argument that he's immoral. But based on my conversations with with people who believe that human beings are more moral than God. None of them has been able to do that, except for offering their own opinions.
Okay, that's fair. So I'm going to ask a couple exploratory questions just to kind of nail it down a little bit further, if that's okay. So you
Sure.
say if God contradicts his own standards, then he would be immoral because he is like the gold standard. So he's the bar which is set. So we're assuming that essentially like God's nature equals morality for the purpose of this conversation regarding morality. But what I heard you say, and this is where some of this stuff becomes confusing for me when I'm trying to establish what morality is how do you determine what God's nature is? Is it things that he says? Is it things that he does? Is it things that were revelation through other people? But by what metric do you determine his nature?
Well, you gotta look at it this way: there's objective morality, and then there's subjective morality. Objective morality says that there's an absolute moral standard. God is our absolute moral standard because, in the eyes of a Christian, God is everything that we consider to be wholesome and pure and good. As I said earlier, subjective morality deals with a person's individual opinions. That their morality is based on what that particular individual thinks, and it doesn't, and it doesn't matter what other people think. It's just that individual's opinion. You know what I mean? So when we're talking about testing to see whether or not God is consistent with his nature, we can look at what he says and we can look at what he does. And it should all come back objective and not subjective.
Okay, so we're going to assume for the remainder of the conversation then that the morality that we're discussing is objective morality because
I believe
God is
objective morality.
Yeah. So for the purpose of this conversation, I'll assume that premise as well, just so that we can figure out the standard. Where I'm getting caught up again is how you determine what that standard is. There's the 10 Commandments, but there's not a really comprehensive list of checks and balances that we can refer to say, well, this is deemed moral and this is deemed immoral. We can hearken back to and refer to the nature of God, but then we're assuming that we know the nature of God, and we have to determine how we objectively know the nature of God in order to meet that objective standard. And that's where I'm getting caught up, is how do you determine what that objective standard is, aside from just saying, well, it's God's nature, which is very kind of ubiquitous. What do you do to determine what that objective standard is?
I'm not understanding 100% what you're saying, but based on what I'm hearing, we don't know God's nature. We don't know what he's thinking or whatever. That's a common argument that we hear from a lot of people who argue for this point. And I'm not saying you, because this is my first time talking to you about this.
Yeah.
But yes, we can know his nature. His nature is described for us in the Bible. If you read it from Genesis to Revelation, you'll get to know all about his nature and what he's all about, how he's holy, how he's righteous, how he's truthful, how he's honest in his dealings, how he is a God of justice, how he protects, how he's loyal and faithful to his people. You know what I mean? How he deals with the people who can't defend themselves and can't feed themselves. You see all this with his nature. You know what I mean? And again, if you could show a contradiction in that, then you have an argument about his morality. But I don't believe anyone can, because no one's been able to point it
out. Okay. It may not be plausible. You may be right. Like in this conversation, I'm not assuming any sort of authority or I'm not very strong philosophically. This is just something that I find interesting and like exploring. So I appreciate you having a conversation with me about it. But I noticed that you mentioned justice in there. Do you view justice as a component of morality?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. For example, if one group of people was wronged, then there should be justice for it. I'll give you an example.
Sure.
In Exodus chapter 1, Pharaoh saw that the children of Israel were growing in number, and he had a fear that they would grow in such a number that they would overtake the Egyptian government and take over the country or whatever. Okay. So in retaliation, the Egyptian Pharaoh enslaved the Israelites. Without going through a long story and whatnot, the Israelites were treated horribly. They were treated poorly, and these were God's people. And before God freed his people, God got justice for his people by putting certain plagues on the nation of Egypt. So they got divine justice for how they was treated when they was in the land of Egypt. That's
Okay.
one example. There's other examples in the Bible as well.
So hear me out here. And this is another part that I have trouble with, because I don't see justice as a component of morality. And it's for this reason. I see justice almost as like a subsidiary of morality, because if you have a perfect moral system and everybody's adhering to that moral system, there's no need for justice. Justice is what happens when somebody deviates from a moral system in order to, I guess, get them back in line with that moral system. So theoretically, like if we go back to, before people, before the world, if God's the standard for the moral system, then God would have had perfect morality prior to there ever being a need for justice, because until people were created and then ultimately sinned, justice wouldn't have even been a concept that was viable. But his morality, if his nature is morality, his nature and thus morality existed prior to people, but the concept of justice didn't exist until people did. And thus justice can't be a component of his ultimate nature, which being morality, because justice is a response to our existence and not part of his nature. Does that make sense?
Where you're coming. Yes, it does, and I get where you're coming from with that. The problem is that justice did exist before people existed, because they were angels, and there were angels that rebelled against God in heaven. Okay, the Bible tells us that.
But wouldn't he predate them too? Like, wouldn't he would have created them as well? So, I mean, if he created everything, including angels, then his nature would have existed before anything that he created.
Right, but the second part of your argument, where you were talking about how there wouldn't be a need for justice if everybody was all following after his standard of morality. You got to remember something. Adam and Eve was tempted in the Garden of Eden to sin against God. And to go and do their own thing. And when they did that, mankind stopped following God's way and started doing their own thing. That's why justice was needed. So I get and understand what you're saying from your perspective. But from the Christian perspective, when you got the full story, you understand that man was in the wrong when he rebelled against God, and that man was wrong for the things that he did after the rebellion. And God is right for judging these people or administering justice when they do anything wrong.
So he was right for administering justice because they deviated from the moral standard. But the justice isn't a part of the moral standard. It's a response to a deviation from the moral standard?
No, it's part of it. It's part of it.
So
I disagree with you when you say that justice has nothing to do, that doesn't have anything to do with morality. If God sat back and did absolutely nothing and he saw evil going on, he did nothing about it, and I mean nothing, you would have a case that God is going against his nature. And in this particular case, it would be holiness. He would be going against his holiness. So again, if you can show how he contradicts his nature, you have an argument in respect to morality. And I don't believe anybody can do that.
I'm not sure if I do have an argument, really, like when it comes to whether or not humans are more moral than God. Before I can even attempt to make an argument, I would need to have a quantified version of a moral standard to compare against, which is why I'm asking the exploratory questions. And one of the reasons that I do get confused about things like that is because people say God's nature is morality. And if God's nature is pure, then the components of that morality would have had to change as he created things, which means that his morality hasn't always been static, which means that his nature hasn't always been static, which is confusing to me. Because
let me help you out with something here then with that.
Okay.
Matt Dillahunty, for example, and I'm going to use him as an example. This is not meant to, when I say what I'm going to say about Matt, this is not meant a knock at you or anybody that thinks like you during this conversation. But Matt Dillahunty believes that human beings are more moral than God, of the Old and the New Testament. I think it's kind of funny. But the reason why he believes that mankind is more moral is because mankind apparently has sense not to flood the earth. Mankind has the sense not to commit genocide and various other things that atheists accuse God of doing, which I don't believe he's guilty of any of those things. I believe that the flood was an instance of justice and judgment. I believe that when he told them to go into the nations and do those things, that he was basically pronouncing judgment on them. And if he didn't do it, he would be going against his own nature. You know what I mean? But Matt Dillahunty tries to argue that. So when I'm used to people saying, when they're talking to me about this, they're start accusing God of everything under the sun that he did in scripture. Mm-hmm. And then say that their opinion is superior to the facts. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but that's how a lot of them argue.
Well, that tells me how these conversations have gone for you in the past, but I'm not sure it helps me clarify what an objective moral standard is. So hear me out again, because this is my thought process, and I'm not attempting to be combative. This is just, we think differently about this. And that's just a fact, I think. When it comes to God's moral standard, a lot of the things that are proposed are things like don't murder, things like don't steal, don't adulter, things that cause direct harm human to human, right? Like if I murdered you, that would hurt you. If I stole from you, that would hurt you. It's not something that I would want to do to me. Those seem almost like common sense things that all of us can agree on. So when people appeal to those things, it rings true. It rings true for those reasons, because I don't want those things to happen to me. Of course, that is an objective moral standard. That seems true to me. But when it comes right down to the minutia of it, like when you get really like down to the nitty gritty of the details, like when it comes to something like being homosexual, for example, or having premarital sex, things that are essentially victimless crimes, there's different people of religious backgrounds who will appeal to scriptures and say, this is objectively the case because I'm appealing to the scriptures, and others who will say, well, it's not, because I can look at this component of the scripture, and they can almost cancel each other out. And that becomes difficult for me to reconcile, because if there's an objective moral standard, it should be apparent. It should be something that's really, really clear if it's objective and it's something that's written on all of our hearts. And it's very clearly not the case to me from my perspective. Does that make sense? Did I articulate that okay?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm going to respond this way though.
Sure.
Are you LGBTQ?
Yeah, I'm bisexual.
Okay, great. Do you have any guilt of being LGBTQ? Being LGBTQ.
No, not at all.
Okay. You have no guilt about it whatsoever.
None.
Do you
0%.
Do you believe that it is natural what you're doing when you're with the same sex?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just because this is a conversation and not a debate, okay? Both of you have the same sexual organs, okay? Mm-hmm. And reproduction would be impossible if you two were, to want to have kids or whatever. You're going to have to do something with a man, right?
Or get artificially inseminated. Yeah.
But that's not natural. If you have to get artificial insemination, that's something that's done by, unnatural means. In order for it to be natural, you have to have sex with a man, get pregnant by a man.
That's not even a guarantee that I would get pregnant. I could be infertile.
Well, you being infertile,
or he could be,
and whether or not it would be considered natural for a woman to have sex with another woman and think that mankind can thrive that way would be something completely different.
Well, it's not prevalent. That's not what everybody does.
So I believe that it would be objectively true, not subjectively. I believe it is objectively true that a heterosexual relationship would benefit mankind and will cause us to thrive, and that homosexual relationships will not cause us to thrive.
But you're not appealing to God's standard right now, though. You're appealing to.
Oh, yes, I am. I'm just not mentioning the scriptures. I'm appealing very much to the scriptures with it.
Okay.
However, I'm taking the scriptures and I'm rewording it to try to appeal to the way you think. If you just said earlier, we don't think the same.
So you think that that's fair, I think. So you think that the only reason to engage in sexual behavior with anybody is for the sole purpose of reproduction? Otherwise, it's immoral?
No, I'm saying that if you're gonna have sexual relations with somebody, I'm assuming that at some point you're gonna want to have a family. You know what I mean? Well, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. You got heterosexual couples that probably don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
But at the same time, one of the purposes for sex, besides enjoyment and having a way to express intimacy on its highest level, one of the main reasons to have sex is to reproduce.
It's one of
And
the
yes,
reasons.
at this point, it was not about the whole conversation, but telling the scriptures where the Bible tells us to be fruitful and to multiply and to subdue the earth. Okay,
Right.
so I believe that if you're going to have sex, that's probably going to be one of the goals. And if you think, and if you have to go to get artificial insemination because do you want to be a mom one day?
I have an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So I better.
Okay. So let's say you didn't have an 8-year-old. Would you want to be a mom?
Yeah.
Would you want to be a
probably.
mom? Okay, so you're going to have sex with a man then. So in order for you to
That's what I did. That's exactly what I did.
So all I'm saying with that is I believe that homosexuality for that reason is unnatural and it does not give us the ability to thrive. It might make you feel good for a couple of seconds, but it's not going to make us thrive.
Couple of seconds, gee, man, do better.
Orgasm doesn't last that long.
Sorry. But okay, so there's a couple of things that you said there that again get me caught up. So if you're looking at absolutes and you're saying that like your argument almost sounds like the only reason somebody should have sex or can morally have sex is if it's going to end up potentially in there being a baby or they one day might want to have a baby.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying in the least bit. God, and again, I rephrase my words to be able to fit your understanding. But if I can be blunt, God said that homosexuality is an abomination. Okay? And everything started with him. And he created sex, according to the scriptures, to be between a man and a woman. Not between a man and a man, not between a woman and a woman. And that's not me being disrespectful or anything like that. That's just me appealing to God's morality at this particular point. He's defending his morality. Because he's the absolute moral lawgiver, because he always was. There was no morality that existed before him.
So the mandate is that's a moral statement because it's a statement that was made by God. And that's what makes things moral.
Right, because he created us to have sex with the opposite sex. And not with the same sex. If you can show me in scripture where that isn't true, then you have an argument. But I don't believe you can.
I'm not sure I could show you in scripture where that isn't true.
Right. So
because I think in scripture it's very, very explicit that if that is the case. But
if you don't mind, if you don't mind, okay. So
go ahead, and then I have a follow up. I still have a couple follow up questions to that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So the discussion is whether or not man is more moral than God. As I mentioned, Matt Dillahunty and others get on YouTube and talk about all of the things that they don't do, and they come to the conclusion that they're more moral than God. Let me ask you something. Do you believe when we're having a discussion like this that it should be based on what we don't do or what we do or both?
I'm going to need you to elaborate on that for me.
Okay. So
I'm not sure that's clear to me.
The Dillahunty argument is that he's never flooded the earth. He's never mass murdered anyone. He's never done any of the things that he deems to be horrible in the Bible, right? Therefore, he's more moral than both the God and the Old Testament, and the Old and the New Testament. In the New Testament, God sacrifices his own son. He thinks that's a terrible thing for God to do. I don't know why, but he believes that's a terrible thing. Now, he never mentions at all of the great things that God has done, like feeding the hungry. He doesn't talk about I'm talking about the things that we universally believe are good: the healing of the sick, raising people from the dead, feeding people, and things like that. He never brings that up. He always brings up the negative things that he deems to be negative about God, and he comes to the conclusion that he's more moral. Then he never talks about the kind of person that he is, and the things that he does behind the scenes, and the things that he does in front of other people when he comes to this conclusion. And my question for you is do you agree with that kind of thinking? Do you believe that there should be that he's being intellectually honest when he is coming to the conclusion that God is that human beings are more moral than God? Because I just don't see it, not from his perspective. I really don't.
Okay. So to answer that question for you, before we move on, I can understand why he makes those arguments. And this is just me speculating. I don't know. I know Matt. He's a good guy. He's a friend of mine. But I can't speak for him. So I can only speak for myself and what I think he might be doing in that scenario. And what I think he might be doing is appealing to something that we can all innately feel is immoral. And if God does it, then since we innately feel it's immoral, then, you know, God must be immoral. And since God is infallible, if we see God as somebody that's infallible, we are fallible, admittedly so, we're fallible. So holding God to our standard of behaviors seems like it would be a silly thing to do. Like, so saying, well, Matt Delahunty might engage in immoral behaviors, but he says God's engaging in immoral behavior, so that's hypocritical of him because they're the same, doesn't really hold water, because God should not deviate from a moral standard because he is the moral standard. Matt Delahunty isn't the moral standard, God is. So comparing them is apples to oranges.
I'll say this, and this is a statement, not a question. And because of the conversation that we're having, I'm not going to ultimately say this until the very end. But okay, I can't necessarily do it. I'm going to do it now. But I'm going to say it now. But this is my end time conclusion on this. I don't believe man is in a place to judge God at all.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't. Well, you're a Christian, so God, yeah. So of course not. That makes significant amount of sense from your perspective because he's God. So.
But you don't have a definitive opinion about this, though. So
no, I don't. I don't. When it comes to morality, it's something that I struggle with. And where I ultimately land is that it's something we kind of figure out as we go. And there are societally agreed upon standards as far as I can tell. And that's terrifying to people. That's terrifying to everybody because we suck at a lot of stuff and we get a bunch of crap wrong. So the idea that it's up to us isn't one that's favorable for us to think about. So we kind of look to a different standard. We look higher up and we say, well, it must be that standard, because it can't conceivably be up to us because that's terrifying. And one of the reasons I like having this conversation, this dialogue, and not as a debate, as an open dialogue, is because it's important for us, from my perspective as a non-Christian, that we do really look at the best way to get it right. Because if we keep having conversations about whose version of morality is the correct one, and we don't have enough conversations about what morality even is, what it means, what it should be, and how we determine that, we're not going to get a better one than we have right now.
Well, you already brought it up in the beginning of the conversation. It has to be a standard theory. It has to be a way to measure whether or not somebody has done something good or wrong. Sometimes in these conversations, I'll appeal to the Ten Commandments. I say, let's look at the Ten Commandments and let's look at God and let's see whether or not he follows his own Ten Commandments. Even though those commandments were given to the nation of Israel, I have no problem taking those Ten Commandments and looking at God and seeing that he's a righteous God.
But he did kill, though. Like, that's one of them. He killed.
Well, but
then you have to contextualize it. And as soon as you do that, it becomes subjective, which is another thing that deviates for me in my mind. You say, well, it is an objective standard, absolute objective standard. But then when God deviates from it demonstrably, you say, well, you have to couch it like this. And then that's a subjective opinion in order to make affordances for God. And that confuses me.
Well, let's talk about this for a moment. So
sure.
Earlier I mentioned the Ten Commandments. And then you know about the commandment of thou shalt not kill, right? Mm-hmm. That word there actually should say thou shalt not murder, because it's talking about unlawfully taking the life of someone. The reason why I know that is because when you start getting into God telling the Israelites what to do and judgment,
sure,
you know what I mean? Like if somebody works on the Sabbath, they're supposed to be stoned. If somebody is caught having sex with an animal, they're supposed to be stoned. They were told to go into certain lands, and they was told to go to war and to kill people when they went into these lands. These people were supposed to be God's instrument of judgment when they did these things. Okay? So if he's telling them to do that, then you have to conclude that word there, kill, would actually mean murder there, the unlawful taking of someone's life. That would be the thing that God is against. He's obviously not against taking a life, because in the law, in the Old Testament, there are told countless times that for this reason, and this reason, and this reason, and this reason, that it was okay to do it. You know what I mean? And it was necessary, just like it's necessary to do it today if you got some criminal that is murdering everybody. You know what I mean? Like you get somebody like a Charles Manson or serial killer or something. You know what I mean? They got to get the electric chair, because if you put them back in society, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep doing it. keep them in prison, they're going to be killing people here. You know what I mean? At some point, that person's got to go. At least from my perspective, anyway. I don't know how you feel about capital punishment and everything, but I still believe that you can look at the Ten Commandments and you can look at God and you can say, you want to know what God is a righteous God because He doesn't contradict any one of those commandments. None of them.
So I feel like what you just did there was give me all sorts of fascinating explanations, rationalizations, and justifications for why it was acceptable based on your interpretation of a scripture, which will potentially okay, I'm going to go back again for a minute because I just saw Steve post something in the chat. That's a very good point. There's a difference between absolute and objective. Objective is just agreeing upon the goals. Once you agree upon the goal, it becomes objective. So this is what makes it difficult for me when it comes to figuring out the standards. What you just did is kind of what I'm proposing we need to do, is figure out what the rationalizations, the best rationalizations and justifications are in order to deem something moral or immoral. So you just gave me yours. I may give different arguments from yours, and I could potentially appeal to the Bible as well to give slightly different arguments. There's all kinds of different sects of Christianity that all believe in the same Bible and interpret it slightly differently when it comes to the minutiae of these sorts of things, and can give those justifications as well. But they're all justifications, and those justifications are, because they're coming from people, are subjective justifications based on humans' interpretive knowledge of a text. So that still doesn't get me to an absolute standard. That's an objective, absolute standard that tells me what the nature of God is.
Let me ask you a question. Is rape wrong all the time?
Yes.
The Bible is against it. The Bible punishes people who actually practices that particular crime, right? So we both agree that objectively speaking, that rape is wrong, right?
Yeah. Okay, but just because the Bible gets...
I'm sorry.
But, well, because the Bible does some stuff about rapists.
We can get to your...
Okay.
We can get to your criticism in a minute regarding the Bible in it, but I'm pretty sure that you believe that the unlawful killing of someone is objectively wrong.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Most people would agree to these things, for sure.
And you would hate for a man to cheat on you, right? You would want that man to be faithful to you, right? You would want a man to, if he says he's going to be with you until death do you part, and that man cheats on you, that you believe that it is objectively wrong for that man to cheat on you, right?
If I'm treating him awfully, I think you should leave. Yeah, probably.
Your boyfriend, your man might be watching this. Be careful.
Oh, he probably is. No, look. I trust him. Careful. Yeah, Paul's probably watching, but I trust him. There's a little bit of ambiguity there for me, because in psychologically or physically abusive relationships, sometimes people kind of reach out and find a partner that's a lifeline that helps them get out of those relationships. And there's some gray area there for me, because that's somebody who's kind of saving them from that relationship. But for the most part,
what about dumping them and then ending their relationship and then finding somebody?
Oh, I think that's totally fine. If you don't want to be with somebody, you should just go.
Yeah, instead of cheating on them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's why I brought up abusive situations, because it's a little bit different in those circumstances.
I believe even in abusive relationships, you should just dump them and then get another person or whatever. You know what I mean? So I believe that is objectively wrong to do that in the Bible.
I think it's case by case.
They were supposed to. And what about our parents? We should never disrespect our parents, right? We should. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can disagree with them. You can disagree with your parents. Don't get me wrong.
I'm going to go back to abuse again. Like, if your parents are sexually abusing you, I mean,
if they're sexually abusing you,
or abusing you,
and you can go to the authorities, or you can go tell a friend.
It's very difficult for like a 10-year-old to do that, though, G-Man.
No, I understand what you're saying, but still,
yeah,
but for the most part,
but saying frig off, don't do that to me is technically disrespect, but it's also standing up for yourself and potentially halting that abuse.
And I also think, psychologically speaking, since you are a psychologist and everything,
I'm not a psychologist. No, I'm not by trade. I have a degree in psychology. I just pointed to it like you can see it, but I'm not a psychologist by trade. I'm not a clinician.
Yeah, you're gonna have to move your picture in the background for me to be able to see your psychology.
My degree's not back there. It's fake.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, seriously speaking though, you know, cussing. Most people know that cussing is objectively wrong.
Fuck
And
no.
you want to know how I
Sorry, James.
But I tested this though. I had a guy named Scott. I had a guy named Scott Fiction come to my YouTube channel one time, and he was saying there was nothing wrong with cussing. He doesn't believe there's anything wrong with cussing. Cussing's okay. They'll be happy when kids are allowed to cussing. Yada. I was like, okay, cool. Put your child on camera and let your child start cussing.
No, I can understand why he wouldn't do that though, because it's not socially acceptable. And if you teach a child that it's socially acceptable, they'll immediately reap repercussions from that. Like if they go to school and cuss, they're going to be punished for that. So if you teach them that it's okay, I know, but I do know parents that cuss at home and their children will swear too, because they're just words. And but they tell them which context.
He wasn't at school.
Isn't okay.
He wasn't at school. He wasn't in no government building. He wasn't anywhere where he could be. He was in his home. He would not have his child get on camera and start doing that. Instead, he made a YouTube video saying, "Hey, G-Man, did something very unchristian. You wanted me to get my child on here and to start cussing and whatnot." You know what I mean? So he doesn't believe that. He knows, and it's ingrained in him. He knows that it's objectively wrong.
No, that's an assumption on your part that you're attributing motivations to him in that instance. Like you're saying, this is the reason why he didn't do it, where he could have a multitude of other reasons. His wife might not want that to happen, and he would have to answer to that. It could be because if you teach the child it's okay in one context, it's a confusing conversation to have with a child saying, okay, I'm essentially using you to prove a point in this scenario, but I don't ever want you to do that again because you might reap repercussions. But I'm telling you it's okay just to prove a point. Like you don't utilize a child in that manner also, just to prove a point.
Yes, you do. In this particular
No, you don't. You never utilize a child to prove a point.
And let me tell you why you do that. Let me tell you why you do it. It's good to show the adult when they're full of it and when they're being sincere. Because when you really do believe that there's nothing wrong with it, you'll have your child doing it as well. Now, let's actually get back on the topic of this discussion.
Okay, yeah.
Are you in agreement with me now that human beings are not more moral than God? Because I haven't even heard.
No, because we haven't even established how to figure out what the standard is yet, which is where we started.
God's nature, or you got to find out how he contradicts his nature. Atheists attempt to do this all the time. They can't do it. You can use the Ten Commandments if you want. You can use what I mean. How about this? Okay. I disagree with this method. But why don't you entertain what other atheists do when they try to say that they use their own subjective moral values to try to determine?
Why would I try to do what other people do?
Well,
I'm legitimately like when we say we're appealing to absolute morals, to God's nature. That's great. It's great to say that, and it's great to say, yeah, well, it's in the Bible. The Bible is a massive book. Not every page of it is morality, and nowhere in it does it mandate a moral code, with the exception of maybe the 10 Commandments and the remainder of the commandments following that. And I haven't boiled any goats in their mother's milk recently, so I got that one down. But that one's one of the laws in there too. Like, okay, let me give you another example then, because I don't think we're going to nail down God's objective or absolute standard. But here's one of the linchpins in my deconversion as I was reading through the Bible. When I got to Numbers and I read the test for the unfaithful wife, there was a lot of things in there that I couldn't reconcile morally. I'm sure you're familiar with that. I think it's like Numbers 21 or 31. So essentially, if a husband travels away and comes back and suspects his wife of being unfaithful to him, he can take her to the tabernacle, and the priest there will take like dirt off the floor and mix it with water and put like an incantation on it. And she drinks it. And if she's been unfaithful, God will cause her to miscarry and then make her completely infertile for the rest of her life. If she hasn't been unfaithful, then she's fine. The baby's fine. And I had a real problem with that because on one hand, when I was a Christian, I was like, well, abortion's objectively wrong because of the Bible standards when it comes to life. But here's God committing an abortion. And also, even if I look at abortion as a woman's right to choose, this is an involuntary abortion that's being thrust upon somebody. That was very, very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around, because
I'm going to answer this according to the way you understand it. All right.
Okay. I can't wait to see how you think I understand it.
Okay, great. So,
Right.
okay, so when you was a Christian, why was abortion wrong?
When I was a Christian?
Yeah, why was abortion wrong?
When I was a Christian, abortion was essentially wrong because I was told that life began at conception and a soul was in that zygote.
I'm sure they didn't use the word zygote.
No, life began. There was a soul at conception.
All right.
Zygote blastocyst.
It would be considered. It would be considered murder at that particular point, right?
Yeah, it would be considered killing a unique soul.
Now,
but I don't believe in a soul.
Let's look at the example from your perspective, from your perspective, not mine, from your perspective about an abortion happening by a person drinking this mud and water, and it would kill the baby, and God would prevent them from, because it was being unfaithful. The Bible says that this will be stoned to death if you commit adultery or whatever. But we're just going to use your example here for this, okay?
It's in the Bible. You can look it up. It's totally
well. Here's the thing: how is God guilty of murder? What law is he breaking?
Well, how is he guilty of murder?
If the woman was being unfaithful,
by my perspective, he isn't. By my perspective, he isn't. But the murder isn't even my main concern.
Well, actually, I never got to finish.
I'm sorry. I thought I was answering your question. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So the woman would be guilty of murder, right? But God can't be guilty of murder because God is not under any laws or any morals, not any. You can't name a standard that he's under that would suggest that he's doing something immoral without appealing to your own personal opinion. No, you have to appeal to your personal opinion in that. You can say that you disagree with it, and that's all fine and well, but it's not based on factual information because it's not based on anything that God is under. What moral standard is God? Is he under your standard? Because what is the creator under the standard?
He's not under my standard. My problem was that it didn't make sense based on my understanding, which may be flawed, of God and God's nature, and God deemed abortion wrong, and God was committing an abortion. That was my first problem. I had more problems with it once I analyzed further. But when I was a Christian, that was my first problem, because it was God that put down the curse on the woman in Numbers and caused her to miscarry.
Why?
Because she was unfaithful. But from God's perspective, that had nothing to do with the baby that she had conceived.
But wait a minute.
So does that mean that women who are unfaithful can have abortions?
No, it's not an abortion.
Does that mean they can go to tabernacles and get God to curse them? And why isn't that happening now?
It's God pronouncing judgment on the unfaithful woman. Again,
by punishing the baby. She gets to live. She's just infertile for the rest of her life. The only life that's lost there is the baby's.
I think a very interesting thing for you to do, and other people who think like this as well, is to download the 617 laws that are mentioned in the Old Testament. Okay? For the Jews, not for Christians. That ain't got. And this is another thing. A lot of atheists tell me that they used to be Christians and they read something in the Old Testament and it caused them to go, oh my Lord, I can't believe he's asking me to practice this. He's not asking you to practice anything. Those laws were given to the Israelites. You can read that in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. Right?
But isn't that an example of his moral standard changing? Which would mean that his nature is malleable?
His moral standard didn't change. God was pronouncing judgment on a woman who broke the Mosaic laws.
So his moral standard is contextual?
No. From your understanding of this, God is passing judgment on a person who broke the Mosaic law. Right. We don't go around calling the police immoral for arresting people who break the law. So why should we call God immoral for not executing, but administering justice towards people?
But how is that justice, though? In order for that to be a justice, you would have to assume that the woman A wanted the baby and B wanted more babies. Maybe she did not want that baby and never wanted another one after that. So the only thing, like in that instance, in that scenario, which may well be a scenario, it's a plausible scenario. She may not have wanted a baby and she may not ever want a baby. If the only two things that happen to her is she loses the baby because God causes her to have a miscarriage and she never gets to have a baby again, God just did her a favor. She's not being punished in that scenario. You have to make a bunch of underlying assumptions about what the woman even wants in that situation in order to even say that's a punishment. right?
Well, the reason why you would think that way is I think you're trying to compare our society today with ancient Israelite society back then. Because back then, having a baby was an honor back then. Just like virginity was looked upon very differently back then than it is today. Today, virginity is laughed at and it's
Having a baby is an
at.
honor now too. Like,
Well, for some,
that doesn't mean that it's something everybody wants to do, and it doesn't mean just because it's perceived as an honor societally, it doesn't mean that everybody within that society wants to have.
Well, again, we would have to be talking about that society. Most atheists, when they're talking about this, or people that have problems with what happened in the Old Testament, is comparing, and unfairly on top of that, is comparing our society today with the society that existed back then. And I know
Again, I feel like we're contextualizing, and then there's no absolute moral standard because it's all entirely contextualized. Like,
no, it's not contextual. It's absolute because morality starts with him, and God says that if you go against his nature, it is sin. The Bible says that sin is the definition of sin. It's two definitions.
Well, did his nature change or did society change?
There are two definitions for sin. The first definition is falling short of the glory of God, and the second one is transgression against the law. When you fall short of his moral standard, you are in sin. When you break his laws, you are in sin. God cannot be immoral if he's executing judgment against you for sinning, for breaking his laws. That is not an argument. That is not the same way if you break the laws of the land. Are we going to say that the police are immoral if you're speeding and they give you a ticket? We're not going to say that that's immoral.
No.
Nor are we going to say that the police are wrong if you shoplift and they come and take you to a holding cell.
No.
So why would God be wrong if he's executing judgment?
I'm not saying that he is wrong if he's executing judgment. I'm saying it's very difficult to ascertain what his standards are because they seem entirely contextualized based on existing societal standards. The standards that were in the Old Testament apparently can be entirely thrown out. The standards that are in the New Testament, there was no laws given in the New Testament, really. So all of the laws that we formed our societies around today can't be based on the Old Testament because apparently there's a new covenant and those don't even matter anymore. Because when an atheist refers to them, they're just like, why aren't you talking about the new covenant? Why are you talking about the old covenant? I'm like, okay, let's talk about the new covenant. What's the moral standard there? And what is it? Like, nobody can give it to me. All they can tell me is, well, stop appealing to that one. Right?
The Bible says that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's what the Bible says.
Well,
and he's the same person that made the laws in the Old Testament is the same one who made his commandments in the New Testament.
So we still need to adhere to the same Old Testament laws, all of them, every jot and tittle.
No, we're talking about morality right now. We're talking about morality right now, and we're talking about whether or not
you said the laws were morality.
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. I did not.
There's two ways to deviate from it, from its nature and from the laws.
I did not say that, okay?
Totally did.
So again, let's look at how we can just throw away what was put in the Old Testament, how it's not relevant to today, okay? Let's look at one little thing. Let's look at what the Bible says should happen to a rapist when they rape a woman. But first, let's look at
they get to buy her from her dad.
Wait a minute.
Did I win?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's look at our society today. Our society today doesn't even know what the heck the word means. We argue about that in court all the time. Yes, we do. You can touch somebody and they'll say they raped you in court.
Oh, dear God.
You know what I mean? So that's our move on, okay? We don't know what the definition of rape is. Okay?
We're super clear on the definition of rape. Okay.
So just let me make my point and then you can laugh and all that other stuff.
Okay.
Point number 2 is the punishment for rape today. What is it? Like 5 years? You get put in the system? You get a slap on the wrist.
Not enough, yeah.
Now let's talk about the Bible here for a moment. If you're not being stoned to death for actually doing it, then a little clarification here a little bit, okay? In the Old Testament, a woman's virginity was very important. If a woman was not a virgin, she was less likely to find a husband. And back then, they depended on the man to be the person that was going to care for them and take care of them, to be the security blanket. If the woman wasn't a virgin, she probably wasn't going to get married, and she probably was going to end up being a harlot or something like that, or a whore or whatever. So your virginity was very, very important. Okay? If a man raped a woman, okay, and she was no longer a virgin, the law says that man must marry that woman. And
lucky
take care of her for the rest. Listen, just hear me out a minute, okay? Because again, the way that you understand this is by looking at the society that they lived in back then. If we're looking at our society today and not looking at the society back then, that's being intellectually dishonest, okay? So the woman is depending on the men to take care of them. So now the man has to marry her and he has to care for her. What atheists do and I've corrected Matt Dillahunty on this and various other people on this, they lie and they say that, oh, God commands that the woman must marry the rapist. That's not true. The father can say no. Okay? So, again, I don't know what you're talking about. The laws back then were tougher than they are today. And I kind of wish that men was forced to marry the women that they rape today. You know why? You want to know why? Because that man would never be able to divorce her. Wait a minute. That man would never be able to divorce her. Let me ask you this. What if Bill Gates, G-Man, really? What if Bill Gates raped you today? And he had to marry you. Just listen for a moment. Listen. You're laughing.
I don't know what I'm doing right now. That was an involuntary reaction. So are you about to insinuate because he's rich, if he raped me, I would be lucky because he would get to have me if my dad said it was okay?
That's what you're saying. I ain't say nothing like that. Okay. I said this. It's too many times that we got wealthy people out there that believe that they can do something and they can get away with it because they got a good lawyer. You know what I mean? Right. Now imagine if the law said that if you were found doing this, you didn't get a settlement. You ain't getting nothing like that. That man had to take care of you for the rest of his life. And when he died, everything that he had to go to you. That is as a man, I can't speak for a woman, but as a man, I'd rather go to the lake of fire because that right there would be pure torment. That would be torment if I had to, that if I only wanted you for that particular moment, now I got to take care of you. I got to care for you according to the law, and you get everything when I die? No. Again, you have to look at it from the societal perspective of what it was like in Israel. So that would be
moral today. Like, so we're talking about. I'm going to try to get back on track. I'm going to try. Okay,
our moral lawgiver, our objective moral lawgiver.
So you think that would be moral if Bill Gates raped me?
He had to take care of you,
loud without getting a little bit angry. So if that happened to me, you think that it would be moral for me to go be with him forever, be kind of obligated to go be with him? I mean, I can't say no, but my dad could say no. If my dad said yes, it would be moral because that would be an adequate punishment for him because he had to give me money.
That's a nice word twisting there because I didn't say that. I said that he.
I don't know what you're saying.
Hold on a minute. That he would be forced to take care of you because you're being emotional right now. You're not really listening.
No, I think I'm actually holding it together pretty good.
I believe that he would have to take care of you for the rest of your life. And if you remember what I said in this conversation, I'm looking at this from the standards of the Old Testament, and I'm comparing it with today because you made the statement and said that we would take the standards they had back then and we would throw them away. No, we would not. That law that they had in the Old Testament will work better today than this hypocritical garbage that we got today, where rapists are walking all the time.
Right. Okay, so I agree with you. The rapists shouldn't be walking all the time.
They should be killed via the death penalty, rapists, and they will be in the lake of fire at some point when they stand in the second judgment if they don't repent. Okay, and then number two, if our society was like the society back then, he would have to care for you because you got to remember, if a woman was not a virgin back then, she would not be a desirable person to marry, and there would be no one to care for women back then. Women were second-class citizens back then.
Right.
Well, they were treated like second-class citizens back then, and they were very dependent upon the man in order to survive. You're not looking at it from that perspective. You're looking at it like, I have a job, I can take care of myself. Why would I want to? You got to stop looking at it that way. You have to look at it from their societal perspectives. If somebody came to you for therapy and they wanted you to look at it from their perspective, that's what you would have to do. You have to listen to what they're saying, listen to the situation that they're in, and then offer your advice. Okay?
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. So I'm trying to make sure I understand this. So I'm going to do my best to carefully articulate what you said, and you could tell me if I'm right. And I'm working. I don't think I'm emotional. It took me back a little bit, but I think I'm working my way back to finding my way through your perspective here.
So show me what I said in the beginning regarding what society we're talking about. Let's start there.
Okay. So first I'm going to try to mirror back what you said so that you can tell me if it's accurate. So you're saying because by that society standards, women were second-class citizens, they didn't have a lot of opportunities. They couldn't really support themselves because they didn't have enough. And once they lost their virginity, they were no longer deemed as valuable, essentially kind of as a commodity, because nobody's going to want to marry them because they're not virgins. So if somebody rapes them, they're kind of ruined in that instance for their potential future life. They're likely going to have to go into some sort of sex trade because that would be the only viable way for them to support themselves. And that's not a great option. So since they don't have any marriage opportunities, they don't have any real opportunities to support themselves within the societal structure that existed back then. If they were raped, the best case scenario for them would be for that person that raped them to be responsible for them for the remainder of their life.
Okay, everything but what you said in the beginning.
Okay.
Again,
tell me where I went off of the rails there.
Okay, so back then, the woman depended upon the man to actually support them. If they were not virgins, they were not desirable. Not that they would go into a sex trade or anything like that. Okay, they would have to do something to provide for themselves.
Steal maybe something unfavorable.
Right,
they couldn't do a trade.
And our society isn't really that different either. If I may be blunt, I'm speaking from a man's perspective. I don't know about a woman's perspective, but I know that there are certain women that are undesirable for me.
Hear me out for a moment though, because this is my proposal for something that might be more favorable. And I mean, I'm not God. I don't know better than him, but maybe that man shouldn't be allowed to marry for the rest of his life and still has to give her financial support without her having to live with him, belong to him, be married to him, have kids with him, be in his house, look at her rapist every day. Maybe that's an adequate solution that doesn't actually cause more psychological damage to the woman.
Response for that. I have the perfect response for that. And it's short and sweet and to the point. Okay. Based on what objective moral standard are you basing that on?
I'm not. It's a proposal. So by what objective moral standard are you suggesting that my proposal isn't better than the one in the Bible?
My objective moral standard, which would be God. You have no objective moral standard. So that opinion that you just mentioned, that isn't based on any kind of factual information whatsoever, would be deemed as an empty statement. It's not based on any factual information whatsoever. So, and that's the crux of this debate.
The standard that
those guys debate. But hold on one second. That's the way Dillahunthy and those guys debate. They'll look at something that God's done. They won't base it on any factual information. They will appeal to emotion like you're doing right now, and they will come to the conclusion that God is this immoral monster. When in reality, when you look at God's standard and you look at who he is, he doesn't contradict his nature. Everything that he does is just. It is good because he is sovereign and because he doesn't do anything that isn't good. You can't name one thing that he's done in the Bible. Not one that was not good.
So
one.
One sec. Just to let and Shannon, I'll give you a chance to respond. Pardon my interruption. Just want to let everybody know we'll go into the Q&A pretty quick. We want to get Shannon to be able to leave on time. So thanks so much. And go ahead, Shan, and then we'll move into the Q&A if it's okay with you guys.
Okay, so this is maybe probably the last thing I'll get to say about this, which is fine. So, pardon me. It all comes back to what my initial problem is you're saying because it's mandated in the Bible, that is the standard, that's the objective standard, that's what you can appeal to. And because it's in the Bible and it's mandated, dictated by God, that is the truth. So anything that I propose that deviates from that isn't based on truth, because that is the truth. You have the truth. I don't have access to it. I get that. But I think that you and I would both agree, like in our heart of hearts, like if you assess it in that scenario, when you're measuring harm, if you have the choice, like even understanding that scenario, that the woman would need financial support for the rest of the life, the opportunity for the woman to go away from a rapist who attacked her and be financially supported, but independent and not in a home with somebody who's assaulted her, or be in a home with somebody who assaulted her and be financially supported. Of those two scenarios, one, I think you would like if you were the person who was raped in that scenario, G-Man, which would you prefer? Would you prefer the financial support and to be able to walk away from your rapist, or would you prefer the financial support and have to live in a home for the rest of your life with your rapist?
Based on what the scripture says in its entirety, I better say that in its entirety, I would want to be secure for the rest of my life if I was a woman, considering what the scripture actually teaches. You got to remember also, the father could say no.
So I'm not really certain that was the answer. Like it was a which scenario do you choose? Do you choose financial support, walk away from rapist, financial support, live with rapist? Which do you choose?
I choose what God said in the scripture.
So you would live with the rapist.
I have no problem with that.
Wow.
So here's the thing now.
I am sorry.
You're saying, wait a minute, Shannon Q. Hold on one second. Because
I'm so sorry.
You're probably saying that wouldn't be good according to the scriptures, right?
I don't think that would be good.
Hold on a minute. If it's wrong, then what is it based on? You have to do something better than emotion or appealing to emotion. You got to show me what it's based on. Give me something hard and concrete that says that what you just suggested is right and what God suggests was wrong. And this is the crux of this debate. If mankind is more moral than God and we know better than God, then we had better have a moral standard to be able to judge that on. And I know atheists don't have it. So what is the moral standard?
I would love to figure it out.
I want to give...
That's why I'm here. I don't know if we figured it out today. But go ahead, James.
I know what God is. I don't know what
God sorted it out. God sorted it out. I just can't see it. You're right.
If you
on me.
I didn't want to interrupt because I know that you asked G-Man a question and I...
No, it's fine. Go.
So I want to let him answer, but if you'd like a quick closing, Shannon, I can give you a closing.
Thanks for chatting with me. It was, I think we deviate a lot on almost everything, but we've always managed to have a conversation that didn't descend into absolute madness. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of explore a different perspective.
You bet.
Okay, so my closing statement is this: I don't believe that ultimately man can judge God at all, because man doesn't have an adjusted moral standard to do it. You know what I mean? And if man isn't even willing to play with the idea that God would contradict his own nature, you know what I mean? Then you just don't got an argument. God is obviously more moral than human beings. Human beings are the ones that messed up, and human beings are the ones that are the immoral creatures in this scenario.
Thank you both. It's been a delight to get to have you. You guys are both class acts. This went really smooth, and I appreciate that you guys were both friendly toward each other. So, sorry, G-Man, you just surprised me on that one question. That's the only reason I laughed, is I was like, wait, what? Okay.
That took me aback too.
It wasn't
I did not see that coming.
Yeah, it was only that you surprised me. Like I said, you keep us on our toes. We like it. And Michael, thanks for your super chat. We're going to try to fly through these really fast. And so we're going to try to close the Q&A. Sorry, we're going to try to fly through as many as the ones that have already come in. Michael, the Canadian Atheist, thanks for your super chat. They said, well, the topic begs the question, but which God are we talking about? Oh, the Christian one. Right. Demonstrate your Sky Daddy, G-Man.
You want me to prove that my Sky Daddy exists? Well, the atheist is my proof that God exists. He's just suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. And if he was in here, I would prove it. Well, whoever it is, yeah.
I suppress the truth and unrighteousness too, G-Man. It's not just for the men.
Yeah. So men and women that are atheists are constantly suppressing the truth about God. They just suppress the truth and unrighteousness. They know that he exists.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Stupid Whore Energy. That's her actual name. So she says, how do you explain God admitting to lying in Ezekiel 14:9?
I don't have my Bible in front of me. Somebody's got to read it.
Let's see. Let me try to see.
That sounds like an opinionated claim.
Let me see if I can pull this up really fast. Forgive me. Thanks for your patience. Don't anybody leave. Okay, hold on. Ezekiel 14:9. The verse says, and if the prophet be deceived when he hath spoken a thing, I the Lord have deceived that prophet, and I will stretch out my hand upon him and will destroy him from the midst of my people Israel.
That's not an issue of God actually lying. It's God creating calamity to either administer justice or to try to get the person to repent or to ultimately judge that person. So that's not a situation where he's lying. That's a situation where God is creating calamity for his purpose. It's not a moral evil. Yeah, and yes, the scripture does say that God created evil, but it's not a moral evil, it is a calamity. So
Gotcha.
that's my answer for that.
Next up, thanks so much. And Roy Lindsay, thanks for your super chat. They said God's nature includes genocide and slavery, right? My guess is that's for you, G-Man.
Okay, so they got to show me an example where God commits genocide. But as far as slavery goes, what kind of slavery are they talking about? I believe that is a very broad term. I'm sorry, that the word can be used very broadly, and they know what they're talking about. They're talking about indentured servitude, or they're talking about transatlantic slave trade type stuff, because God doesn't support that. God actually gives a death penalty for people who actually do those kind of things. So I really don't know what they're talking about. Sounds like a person that got the footnotes and didn't actually read the Bible.
Gotcha. So far, they've all been for G-Man. I think this one might have been for Shannon. Stupid Horror Energy, thanks for your super chat. He says, it burns when I pee. Thanks for that.
That one's for me?
Just my guess.
God damn it, Jake.
So, I appreciate that. Those are always my favorites. Mr. Let's see. Stupid Horror Energy has another one. She says, if God's nature is good and good is God's nature, how are you adding any content to the definition of God?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Forgive me. I actually
don't understand that question.
I screwed up the last part. Sorry about that. It's they're asking if God's nature is good and good is God's nature, so just vice versa. They say, how are you adding anything or any content to the definition of good?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that question. There would need to be clarification or something with that question. I don't understand.
I think they're saying, like, if God's nature and goodness are synonymous, like they're the same thing, then how are we adding any content to the definition of good when we...
I don't understand that because I don't know if I've done that or not. I don't know. They need to elaborate further on what they mean by that. I'm being honest. I just don't understand the question.
No, it's totally okay. It's like, I don't know for sure if I understand it myself. So thank you very much. Roy Lindsay, thanks for your question or super chat question. They said theism is unnatural, especially Christianity. I think this is tying to some of the things that you described as unnatural, G-Man.
Christianity is unnatural?
They said theism and especially Christianity.
Getting forgiveness for doing something wrong and getting a pardon for punishment is unnatural. Yeah. Okay. There's nothing natural. There's nothing unnatural about that. That's for sure. We see that happening all the time where people are thrown in jail and then people are getting pardons and people escaping the death penalty, which is what Christianity is all about. And that is that people confess that they're sinners and that they believe on Jesus Christ. Their sins are forgiven and they're given eternal life and they escape the judgment to be thrown into the lake of fire. Oh, it's very natural. Very natural.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. We do have one for Shannon. SJ has your back, Shannon. SJ Thomason says, Shannon, is it reasonable to think the Beatitudes could encompass our moral standards?
Oh, I'm not certain. I'd have to... It's been a long time since I read through the... Did I freeze? What's happening? Did I freeze? Can you hear me?
No, you're not frozen on my side.
Oh, I'm frozen on my side. Okay. Sorry. I would have to have a look at it and probably a serious discussion with somebody. Maybe it's reasonable. I don't think that I'm equipped to on ad hoc on the fly answer that question. Probably not.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Let's see. G-Man looks satisfied. Brian G, thanks. Look, I'm sorry. I just love you guys. Brian G, thanks for your super chat. He says, for next time, let's see. He's teasing you, G-Man. He says, could you please insist that G-Man changes out the batteries in his smoke alarm before coming back on the show? Oh, G-Man. We love beep, beep, beep. I love the beeping. It adds to the video. We need that. So, Occult Nino, forgive me if I mispronounce it. They said, Shannon, always great. And they say, G-Man, God is a pissed off Thanos. Snap. So I don't know if they're trying to allude to the idea that God is like a harsh consequentialist like Thanos or what they're saying, but you can respond if you'd like, G-Man.
God is going to punish sinners. Thanos just wanted to kill half the universe because he claimed half the universe I'm sorry, he claimed that there wasn't enough food in the universe, so he snapped half a quintillion people out of existence, or whatever the number was in that particular galaxy. God is gonna judge people who hate him and people who refuse to repent. There's a big difference between Thanos and the God of the Bible. A huge difference.
Gotcha. I'm sorry, Wilson. Thanks for your super chat. They said, if God is the foundation for morality, shouldn't God hold himself to the standards that he puts forth? I think they might be alluding to the idea of the abortion, miscarriage, whatever you want to call it, idea that was discussed.
That's actually pretty easy. He does, and then some. That's why we call him righteous and we call him holy. As a matter of fact, the scripture says in what is that in Peter, when it talks about be ye holy because I am holy. Okay, so again, there's a difference between a woman who gets pregnant by a guy and doesn't want to be responsible and wants to go to an abortion clinic versus the person who breaks a law and God administering justice. Because the majority of the people that, and I mean the vast majority, 90% of the people that go to these abortion clinics are people who had sex irresponsibly and don't want to be responsible adults and have those children. They can give those children up to adoption. There's no excuse for them to have abortion whatsoever. However, if you got a woman that is being unfaithful and they're breaking the Mosaic laws, and God is free to execute whatever judgment that law particularly says. So that makes zero sense from a Christian or a naturalistic perspective.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. And
Can I say one more thing, James? Can I say one more thing?
You bet.
S.J. Thompson, I know you're watching this. You said that you wanted me to come to a after show. I am more than willing to do that. Just send me the link after this is over. But go ahead, AJ.
Tear me up, guys. Tell me what for. Tell everybody why I'm so dumb.
Gotcha. Thank you.
They're calling you dumb? They're calling you dumb?
No, I was just joking. I'm sure SJ's not going to tear me apart and tell people I'm done. I was just joking.
Okay.
Oh, SJ's coming in again. She says, thanks for your super chat, SJ. She says, Shannon, how do you ground our objective morality when the grounding cannot simultaneously be the source and the consequence?
I'm not sure if SJ wasn't here early on in the conversation when I said I find this as an exploratory process for me. I am still uncovering what my conceptualizations of morality are, and it's in some instances frustrating because when I engage in these conversations and I try to lay out and figure out what moral standards are and what makes a moral standard and why they're important and how we measure ourselves against them, most people are really, really busy trying to prove me wrong when I haven't even made any arguments. So I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm not sure that anybody really, honestly, and truly does know the answer to that question. I think lots of people assert that they do. But when really, really pinned down and you say, okay, what constitutes it? How do we know that it is? How do you determine what that objective standard is? How do you answer these questions? A lot of people make appeals to things that are subjective, which kind of pulls me right back to, well, you'll say it's objective, but you're using subjective justifications. So why don't you tell me how you determine what is or is not an objective morality without directly appealing to God's nature, without being able to describe God's nature? And then we'll have a chat about what morality is that maybe is productive and not argumentative.
Can I do a follow-up on this, James, if you don't mind?
If I can just, I definitely give you a chance, but I just want to mention the Jim Tanker actually intercepted this objection from SJ, and he says the answer is increasing flourishing and reducing harm through the mechanism of the veil of ignorance.
Interesting.
So, can I respond to that one?
Oh, G-Man's eyes just went like that.
Can I respond to that one? But first, I want to say something to Shannon Q. Shannon Q did say in the beginning of this conversation that she doesn't have a definitive stance on this. Oh, yeah. However, Shannon, you do have an opinion about this to a certain degree.
I have opinions for sure.
When we started talking about what the Bible says about the rape issue, and you started talking about it from a human from a human perspective.
Sure.
And while you didn't say it outright, you did kind of explain when you stood on this. You know what I mean? Now,
on that individual one, yeah, for sure.
Now, regarding the statement that the individual said about thriving and flourishing, then I'm afraid that the person who made that statement is going to have to drop LGBTQ because there's nothing in that whatsoever that is going to cause any of us to thrive or flourish. That is a horrible argument. Anyway, so let's go on.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. We Vibrant Brantley says, beep, beep, beep. Ocean Kelso.
Beep, beep, beep.
November 2019.
Meet me.
Next up, Stupid Horror.
What's happening? What's going on? Where am I?
Stupid Horror Energy, thanks for your super chat. She says, does Shannon have a long yellow lounge chair, or is that a green screen?
I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Look at me. I'm on it. Can I get on it? Leaning on it. It's a green screen.
Very nice. Very it's pretty
super
advanced.
Professional, right?
Some pretty advanced effects over there. That sounds Jeremy Pace, thanks for your super chat. Let's see. I'll wait until G-Man gets back. I'm gonna try to find another one for Shannon.
I'm back.
You got it.
Nobody wants to talk to me. Fine, guys, whatever. I don't want to talk to
we
you.
got one
I
from
don't care.
Mitchell. Mitchell just sent one in for you. Jeremy Pace, thanks for your super chat. He says, for G-Man, what is the punishment for raping a virgin, and how is that moral?
What is the punishment for raping a virgin? Well, usually what happened was it was one of two things. It was stoned to death, or you had to actually have to marry the virgin that you raped. And let me explain again why that, because in case that person wasn't here earlier, again, virginity was a very important thing in ancient Israel, and women depended upon a man to care for them. And if the woman was not a virgin, then they would not be desirable for a man to marry. Okay? So if the man raped her and he wasn't killed, and then another man came along and said, I want to marry you, but found out that she wasn't a virgin, she would probably be considered a harlot for not telling anybody or anything like that. So a lot of women the women back then were not desirable unless they were married. All right. So it's very moral for God to execute judgment on someone who's breaking the law. You can actually download the 617 laws that are in the Old Testament, and you will see where God is addressing things, and he's talking about the punishment for breaking these laws. We don't call the police immoral, and I said this in this discussion earlier. We don't call the police immoral for arresting people, for writing tickets to people who speed. We don't call the police immoral for arresting people who are murderers. We don't call the government immoral for executing people in capital punishment. It's a silly statement to make.
Gotcha.
Based on nothing.
Next up, thanks for that. And Quasa, forgive me if I mispronounced that. Let me know. They said, thanks for your super chat. They said, I literally disagree on everything he is saying, but considering the notoriety, I admit G-Man is making good conversation so far. Kudos. Oh, snap. Looks like you got a critic out there, G-Man.
Oh yeah, you can get in line with the other 1,500,000 of them. You know.
Mitchell, thanks for your super chat. He said, Shannon, if God is moral or is more immoral than humans, explain why within the past century we've killed more innocent humans by abortion than history combined. Or I think they mean all of history combined prior to in the last century.
Explain. So we would need to establish why abortion was immoral by God's standards. And if we refer back to Numbers, where God himself committed an abortion, it would be difficult for me to measure that against God's standards, because by his standards, if you're appealing to that, it would be moral, unless you're going to be using justifications to say why in that instance it was okay, in which case then you're applying subjective standards, which gets confusing for me, which is why I think these conversations are important. And instead of challenging what is or isn't moral in these conversations to say, well, use God's standard. Tell me why we're not more moral than God, because we do this. Okay, well, based on what standard? Because you're appealing to God's morality. I can give you an example of where he seems to deviate from it. Nobody seems to give me a good reason why that's okay. It's just a bunch of talking around it, and then we're right back to subjective interpretive argumentation. And what I want to have these conversations for is to just really get a strong grounding of what is or isn't moral and why. And
can I please?
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer.
I would like
Maybe we aren't, but how do we know?
I would like to respond to that. I like to respond to that.
If it's like
again,
literally
Shannon,
literally 30 seconds just to try to get through as many questions. Sorry about that, G-Man. We just got a ton of.
I let you answer yours. I just sat here drinking my Coke.
Next up, thanks for your patience, G-Man. Stupid Horror Energy, thanks for your super chat. They said, is God good because his nature has good properties? Or are those properties good because God has them? Also, Jim told he convinced Shannon to... What? I think that she was trying... I think she was trying to say, also, Jim told me he convinced Shannon to do this topless. I think it's because they can't see your shirt. Ha ha.
Oh, I'm wearing a shirt. Oh, I don't know how you have me framed. I can only see Zoom, but I'm wearing a shirt.
I just realized,
can you only see my hair?
Yeah, pretty much.
G-Man can attest that I am in fact wearing a shirt. It's actually Digital Hammurabi's shirt. It says, y'all need a Nana.
Yeah, she's wearing a shirt. Yeah, both is my answer. My answer is both.
Let's see. Next up, thanks so much. Maynard says she's wearing a shirt. Maynard says thanks for your super chat. They said Drake's gonna have a heyday with this. Are you friends with Drake? I saw he was on your stream, G-Man. You guys were like chatting it up tonight. You seem like you're friends.
No, I'm not friends with Dragnut. Me and Dragnut were just talking about whether or not atheists support the New World Order. That was it.
Oh, Drag's my designated hugger.
Gotcha. Okay, well, next, also, somebody asked me to ask you, G-Man. Loki, thanks for reminding me to ask G-Man, is it true there's a G-Cat? Like, do you have a G-Cat that looks strikingly like you? Is this a joke or is it for real?
I think it's a joke. I have some animals that debunk evolution on my YouTube channel and they talk, but, you know, I don't have a G-Cat.
There's no cat that wears a ball cap like you.
I think the ball cap was photoshopped on.
Yeah.
I've been duped. Okay, thanks. Quasa, thanks for your super chat. They said, I take it back. Jay Shy, thanks for your super chat. Sorry, I'm trying to fly through these as fast as possible. They said, if God is immoral, then why did he create morality?
Solid, I guess. Question.
Let's see. The Jim Tanker, thanks for your super chat. They said, G-Man, any morality given by God, by a being or God, is subjective by definition. The only truly objective moral system is secular morality. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, G-Man. What do you think of that?
I think they need to leave the drugs alone. That's what I think they need to do. That's my answer. They need to leave the crack cocaine alone.
Where does it say you can't do drugs in the Bible, G-Man?
Drugs would be considered witchcraft in the Bible, so no, we're not supposed to be doing them. Yes, it's considered witchcraft.
Stop it.
Yes, it's considered witchcraft.
I could talk to you all day. This is bananas. Go ahead. Sorry, James. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm bumping this up just to keep Shannon engaged. And I want to we'll wrap up really soon. Sorry. Caustic Soda, thanks for your super chat.
Hi.
They said, Shan, I believe objective morality can be demonstrated easily, but I admire your honesty. Is multiple partners morally okay or just a sexual preference?
Oh, I think it's morally okay, so long as everybody's consensual and everything's out in the open. Absolutely. I have no issue with polyamory. I have friends who are in polyamorous relationships and they're completely contented and happy.
Gotcha.
So long as it's consensual.
I hope your boyfriend is not watching.
I'm not. You didn't. I'm guessing you didn't hear the part where I said it's consensual and open. I do not consent.
All right.
If he wants a polyamorous relationship, that's fine. He can go have one. I won't be a part of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. Next up, the Holy Spackle. Thanks for your super chat. They said cuss words or being forced to live with your rapist. Which is more immoral?
Both of them are wrong because sin is sin, and Spackle should know that.
You said it was wrong.
Cussing
and being forced to live with your rapist.
Well, again, okay, I didn't hear that one right. Let me correct myself. No, that was a legit mistake. Okay, cussing is wrong, but again, Holy Spackle, who's supposed to be a Christian, is adding to the Bible at this particular point. She should know that was a punishment, not for the woman, but is a punishment for the man who humbled her. If you I can actually download the law and show you what the law says, who's in violation, and who would be the one that's actually being punished at this point. But again, you're looking at it from our society today, and you're not looking at it from ancient Israel. So to me, that's just intellectually dishonest, Holy Spackle, as usual.
Gotcha.
Hi, Holy Spackle.
Hi, Holy Spackle.
Of course, the world's gonna love his own. The world's gonna love his own. Okay.
Puff of Love. Puffalopagus, thanks for your question, or I should say debate challenge. G-Man, they're coming at you. Puffalopagus said, I'll take G-Man up on that debate.
What debate?
I'm not sure. Let me quick find out.
I don't know what debate he's talking about.
So sorry. Forgive me, Puff. Puff, let me know. I'll keep an eye out. Subtracted, thanks for your super chat. They said, how does a supernatural being have a nature?
What kind of question is that? I don't even know how to answer something like that. Okay, it's really easy. He exists outside of time and space. He has a personality, and through his personality, he has a nature. What kind of question is that?
Gotcha.
Fair one.
Thank you very much.
Again.
Gosh, you stupid horror energy. Thanks for your super chat. They said, is God unable or unwilling to prevent child abuse?
God is unwilling or unable. God allows sin to destroy sin, and God allows sin to expose sin. If people were living according to the way, and this is what you see in these scenarios, if people were living the way they were supposed to be living according to God's standard, these things wouldn't exist.
And there'd be no need for justice.
Again, I already addressed that earlier in this. And again, and by the way, Shannon, that's not an argument for human beings being more moral.
It's not an argument. It's a question.
But are you like aware of this entire conversation? You haven't built like one thing yet.
I wasn't trying to. I'm trying to figure out what the objective moral standard is. Are you aware during this entire conversation you didn't establish an absolute moral standard?
I did not establish that God's nature was his moral standard. I did not tell you to use the 10 Commandments. Come on,
you
now.
did, but then you couldn't demonstrate how we determine. Aside from saying Bible, you couldn't demonstrate how we determine what the absolute standard was, unless we give justifications and interpretations.
So
you provided justifications and interpretations.
That is a cheap cop out. And passive aggressive.
I'm so sorry.
You told me I could go to bed, James.
I know. I want to just fly. I'm so sorry. If I can just read through these, and for the speakers, if you're, unless there's something you really, really want to respond to, there's not too many more. Thanks for your patience. I owe you, Shan. Taliesin Oberlander said,
I do.
You owe Shannon.
I'm tired.
What about my patience?
No, it's not about patience, G-Man. It's because I asked to finish at 11:30 my time because it's quarter to 12 now, and I have to work in the morning, and my son's asleep, and I have to get up and get him ready for school. So he's apologizing to me because we've gone over the time, not because I had to deal with you or whatever. You had to be patient with you because you had to be patient with me too. I'm intensely antagonistic. I understand.
She's like 100 hours ahead of us, G-Man. So Taliesin Oberlander.
It's a quarter. It's actually a quarter to 11 where I'm at. So I don't know where she's at. I'm in East Coast time.
Oh, I'm in Atlanta, Canada. So yeah, I'm just an hour ahead of you.
Taliesin Oberlander, thanks for your super chat. They said, are absent fathers worse than unbelievers? Occult Nino, thanks for your super chat. They said, both debaters, favorite color?
Purple.
Blue.
Nice. Marty Cameo, thanks for your super chat. They said, G-Man, I'm bisexual or infertile and married to a man. Is that natural? Yes or no, G-Man? Oh.
No.
Converse Contender, thanks for your super chat. This is hard to when we constrain it to one word. They said non-believers think they know our Bible better. LOL. I think they're laughing at you, Shannon. How do you like them apples? Thanks for your.
Did I say that?
All right, sure. Jeremy Pace, thanks for your super chat. They said, how is being forced to marry your rapist moral? And Brian Stevens, thanks for your super chat. They said, capital
G-Man's going to rip his blinds down.
Brian Stevens, thanks for your super chat. They said, capital punishment is immoral. G-Man is wrong. QED. What does QED mean? Is that like a pet name?
So you don't need me no more, right? I can go now?
No, just one second.
Don't need me posing any questions.
Too cool for school over here. Shannon's willing to wait. Come on, cut me some slack, G-Man. Jay Shy, thanks for your super chat. They said, if God is immoral, no moral, how create morality? Padme the Cot said, tell G-Man that G-Cat owes me $5 and call me. Thanks for that. G-Man, come on, laugh with me. Roy Lindsay.
I'm laughing, but this is at this particular point, I'm like, because Shannon ain't the only one who got to work tomorrow.
This is the very last one. They just sent it in. Roy Lindsay said, daily reminder, God isn't real. Thanks for your objections, everybody. If G-Man, or actually Shan, or is it SJ's having an after show, so you may get to hear from SJ on these super chats in terms of what she thinks, as well as the discussion as a whole. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's been a true pleasure. Thanks to Shannon and G-Man and for their patience tonight. By the way, we started late because of G-Man. Okay, so anyway, it was a joke. Okay, all right. So everybody have a good night. Thanks so much. Take care.